She couldn't hear a single word they said about her, but she felt every single one of them.
The galactic relay station of Vareth Prime buzzed with the noise of 100 different species. Ships docked and departed every hour. Traders haggled in 7 languages simultaneously. Soldiers from the Kryn Federation marched in polished silver boots across the steel-plated floors. Merchants from the Orvali cluster draped themselves in shimmering cloth that changed color with every emotion they felt. And in the corner of Landing Bay 12, sitting alone on a rusted cargo crate, was Lyra. She was Aethyn, a race native to the cold blue moons of the Sereth system. Her skin was the pale blue of deep ice, her eyes a quiet, steady silver gray. Her long blonde hair fell in 2 thick braids over her shoulders, adorned with small wooden beads that her mother had threaded through them when she was a child. She wore a simple leather top, hand-stitched, and bracers carved from the bonewood trees of her home moon. Lyra had been deaf since birth. In a galaxy that communicated through voice command, frequency signal, and sonic resonance that made her invisible to almost everyone. She watched the crowd move around her the way water moves around a stone, not noticing it, not caring that it exists. A Kryn soldier knocked her crate with his elbow and didn't look back. An Orvali merchant stepped over her bag without breaking stride. A docking officer walked past her 3 times before finally shoving a paper form into her hands, pointing aggressively at a line she was supposed to sign, and walking away without once making eye contact. She signed the form. She always signed what they handed her. It was easier than trying to explain. She was trying to find passage to the agricultural colony on Davin 5. Her people had scattered after the Sereth moons were stripped for minerals by the Federation. Lyra had read, from a transmission text, that a small community of Aethyn survivors had settled there. She just needed someone willing to take her aboard. She had asked 12 ships already. 12 rejections. Some were polite. Most were not. One captain had laughed, signing back at her in mocking, exaggerated gestures before his crew joined in. She had walked away from that one slowly, so they wouldn't see her hands shaking. She pulled out her worn translation board, a flat device the size of her palm, etched with symbols she could tap to produce simple text on its small screen, and waited. That was when she saw him. He was human. She knew humans by their build, shorter than Kryn, softer featured than Orvali, wearing the kind of practical clothing that said "I work for a living." This one was tall for a human, broad across the shoulders, in a dark combat-worn jacket with faded rank insignia on the sleeve. His face was tired but not unkind. He was loading supply crates into a mid-sized transport vessel alone, no crew in sight. Lyra stood up. She walked over and tapped his shoulder. He turned, startled, and looked at her, really looked, not through her, not past her. She held up her translation board. She had already typed the message. "I need passage to Davin 5. I can work for it. I am a skilled navigator, and I know the Sereth belt routes better than any chart. I am deaf. I will not be a problem." The human read it. His brow furrowed, not with annoyance, she realized, but with thought. He looked at her for a moment, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small notepad and a pen. Old technology. She almost smiled at that. He wrote, "My name is Callum Reyes, former Federation scout. The Sereth belt routes, you know, the hidden corridors?" She typed back, "I mapped 3 of them myself." He wrote, "How long to Davin 5 using Corridor 7? She typed without hesitation, 14 hours. Faster if the ion drift is low. He looked at her again. Then he jerked his head toward the ship. "Come on, then." She had expected the inside of a ship to be like every other cargo hauler, cramped, grimy, smelling of fuel and old meals. Instead, it was organized.
Clean.
There were maps pinned to every surface, handwritten notes, small models of planetary systems built from wire, and scavenged parts hanging from the ceiling like mobile art. Callum pulled out a second chair at the navigation console and gestured for her to sit. He handed her a headset, not for audio, she realized, but because it was connected to a visual feedback system. Every alert, every proximity warning, every communication signal translated into light pulses and screen text. He had modified it himself. She could tell by the rough solder marks on the side. She looked at him. He shrugged and wrote on his notepad. Had a deaf sister. Old habit. She didn't respond to that right away. She pressed her lips together and looked at the navigation console instead, because if she looked at him for another second, she was going to cry, and she had not cried in front of anyone in 4 years. They flew. She guided them through the Sereth belt with her eyes closed half the time, reading the visual drift patterns on the screen the way she had learned as a girl, by the rhythm of light, not sound. Callum flew. He was good. He didn't overcorrect. He trusted her readings without question. At one point, a Federation patrol hailed them. Callum handled the audio, while Lyra watched the transcript roll across her screen. The patrol asked if they were carrying passengers.
Callum said no.
Just cargo and crew. She watched him say it, and felt something loosen in her chest. Crew. Not passenger. Not charity case. Not burden. Crew. They reached Aethyn, 5 in 13 hours and 40 minutes. The ion drift had been favorable. When the ship touched down on the amber-grassed plains of the colony, Lyra could see small blue figures in the distance, her people moving between low buildings, tending to the land. Her hands gripped the edge of the console. She picked up his notepad and wrote, "Why did you say yes?" 12 ships said no. Callum took the notepad. He thought for a moment. Then he wrote, "Because you said you wouldn't be a problem, but you also said you could navigate the Sereth belt. That second part is what I needed. The first part, I never cared about that." She read it twice. Then she wrote back, "If you ever need the belt routes again, I will be here." He nodded. He held out his hand, the human way. She shook it, the Aethyn way, palm up, fingers curled slightly inward, which meant, "I owe you a debt that has no number." He didn't know what it meant. But somehow, the way he smiled, she thought maybe he understood anyway.